I get a lot of questions about why we do what we do in our clinics. And it has a lot to do with something that happened to me when I was a student at Indiana University. Now, in the early 80s, and I was a student at Indiana in the 80s, in the early 80s they filmed a movie at Indiana University called Breaking Away. It won an Oscar, so if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. But the movie was filmed at Southern Indiana, where Indiana University is. Dennis Quaid, by the way, this I think was his first movie. He was in the movie. It's a cute little movie about a bike race, and the movie was filmed at Indiana University, and it's kind of an Indiana University story. And there's a scene in the movie where the main characters are jumping off of a cliff into water. Here's the water right here. Now, because the movie was filmed at Indiana University, it kind of became a rite of passage as a graduating senior to go out to the cliff and jump off the cliff to show how smart you are, right? So, from the top of the cliff, right up here, all the way down to here, at 70 feet, you can see there's somebody right there. Okay, they're on their way down. And 70 feet from the top of the cliff into the water. And because it was a rite of passage, we went out there and we were going to jump. I went with my 5 roommates, and I, being the smartest of the 5, I decided I would jump first. And when you jump from 70 feet, you want to go in the water very straight. And when I jumped and I landed with my feet a little bit in front of me. So what happened is I took a pretty good jolt to my low back. Now I didn't land on my back, I landed with my feet first, but I really kind of jammed my low back. And instantly I had pain. And I had pain that was pretty severe. It was very difficult to get out of the quarry. You can swim to the other side and walk out, but it was just very difficult to move. I didn't feel like I broke anything on my back. When I grew up, I played a lot of sports and I broke a lot of bones. And the feeling I had in my back was different than a broken bone. It was kind of a sharp pain, but it was a variable of when I moved a lot, it hurt more. But it was severe. And I decided that it wasn't broken because it didn't feel like a broken bone, and I didn't do anything right away. I figured whatever the pain I had would go away. Anytime I had a pain growing up, even the broken bone pain would eventually go away. And I felt like this wasn't a broken bone. It was sharp in my low back, but didn't feel like it was broken, and I felt like, maybe I bruised my back and the pain's going to go away. Well, it took about 2 or 3 weeks before I started feeling a little bit better. And slowly over time, I felt a little bit better. Eventually I graduated, I moved back home, and my father's a chiropractor. And I told him I had a bad back. I didn't tell him how I hurt my back, but I had back pain. And he treated me, and I felt a little bit better. And at this point in time, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I thought, well, maybe I'll be a chiropractor. So I went to chiropractic college. And at about 2 years into my chiropractic college program, I started getting more severe pain in my back, and I was starting to get some pain in my legs. And I got an MRI, and what I found was I had a herniated disc, a bulging disc, and a pretty severely degenerated disc. And really what had happened is when I jumped off that cliff and I sort of jammed my low back, what I did is I jammed my sacrum into my L5 vertebrae, and I kind of compressed the vertebrae a little bit. Not the vertebrae, I'm sorry, I compressed the disc. And the pain I was having 2 to 3 years later was really now the disc that was compressed was breaking down. And I was getting an inflammatory process and irritation to the nerves. I was getting pain in the legs. I got some more treatment. I got some physical therapy, and I took some medicine, and I got a little bit better. Okay, I never got 100% better, but I got better. And eventually I graduated. And I graduated, and I opened up a clinic in Countryside, Illinois, and I started treating patients as a chiropractor. I'm treating a lot of hands-on. And what I noticed was 2 things. Number one was my back pain was getting worse. I would get treatment and I'd feel a little bit better, but the back pain would never go away, and really it would get worse. But I also noticed that there was a very specific group of patients that I had. They were a lot like me, where they would get treated, they would feel better, but the pain wouldn't go away. They would do something and the pain would come back, and they'd come in for more treatment. 80% of the patients, they would get better and they would be better, and they would not come back because they were fine. But 20% were like me, where they were stuck. The pain would get better, it'd get worse, it'd get better, it'd get worse, and all the while mine really is getting worse. And it got to the point after about 2 to 3 years of doing this hands-on with the patients where my pain on an average day was like an 8. You know, it wasn't an 8 all day, but by the end of the day it was an 8. And throughout the day it was anywhere between a 4 and an 8, all day long, all day long. I would get treatment, I'd feel a little bit better, but every day it would be bad. And I was getting a little bit discouraged. And when you have back pain that is that high every day, it does two things. It prevents you from doing activities. So what happens is everything in your life gets a little bit smaller. Your ability to maybe go out and do long walks gets less and less, and your ability to pick up certain things gets less and less. And it got to the point where I stopped golfing, I stopped taking vacations because carrying the luggage would make me feel worse. And there was a time I was in Florida and woke up the day after we got there and I could hardly get out of bed and spent the rest of my vacation in bed. So that everything in my life got a little bit smaller and I did less and less and less and less. And finally I got to the point I'm like, I've got to do something. I can't live like this. I can't live like this. I can't do my job like this. I can't raise a family like this. I had 2 small kids. I couldn't pick them up, couldn't cut the grass. All those simple things that couldn't do them anymore. I felt like I had to do something. And the only option I was really left with, because I tried all the chiropractic and acupuncture and physical therapy and tried the medicine, the only option I was truly left with, because I had such a severely degenerated disc and the herniated disc and the bulging disc, the trifecta really, was surgery. I consulted with surgeons and they wanted to do surgery. And I didn't want to do surgery. I thought, you know what, this is not an option for me. This is not how I'm going to be able to live my life or even do my job as a chiropractor with this back. And the option really was a fusion surgery. So I thought, I don't want to do that. And I decided I had to find a way out. And my way out wasn't going to be through the surgery. It was going to be through something else. And I just felt like maybe there was another option for me. Maybe there was things available that I didn't know about that I should find out about. I tried physical therapy and and ultimately that made me worse. So I figured there has to be another way. There has to be another way. So I decided I would go on a quest. And when I went on my quest, I was going to look for ways out. So I was going to meet with specialists. And one of the criteria that I used was the top athletes in the world that are getting paid the most money. What are they doing? If they have a bulging disc or a herniated disc and they're not getting surgery, what are they doing? So I pursued specialists that were working with some of the top athletes. So I met with chiropractors, I met with physical therapists, I met with orthopedists, I met with massage therapists, biomechanists, really a long list of people. But all people who maybe had a new perspective on my problem. So as I met with these specialists, each one sort of had their little version of what they thought was happening. And I was able to take in what they were telling me, but also start to perform some of the activities that they thought might solve my problem. And I would do, I'd meet with a specialist and I'd go through a routine and I would see how I feel. And when you have back pain that bad, it's very specific about what makes you feel better and what makes you feel worse. Meaning, you do something and it makes you feel better. You say, yeah, that made me feel better, but I did this and it made me feel worse. And when you have back pain that level, if it makes you feel worse, you don't want to go anywhere near it ever again. So what I was able to do is I was able to isolate all the things that made me feel better. And it wasn't one specialist that I did one thing and that was it. It was I went to one specialist, I did the things, and there was one thing that always made me feel better, so I kept doing that. And my pain would come down from an 8 down to a 6. And then I would meet with other specialists, and truly I met with doctors from LA, from New York, I met with some doctors from Europe. So it really was meeting with these different specialists and each one having a different perspective about what had to happen. And I would do one thing and I'd feel a little bit better, and then I would go meet somebody else and they have an idea and they'd say, all right, looks like maybe this is happening, and I would do what they recommended. And again, there were certain things that helped and certain things that didn't help. And as I met with these people, ultimately what I did is I eliminated all the things that made me feel worse. Because when you have back pain that's a 7 or an 8 and you go to a 9 or a 10, you don't want to go near it, and I'd say, get rid of that. That didn't work for me. So eventually I found my way out where I was meeting with specialists. And slowly I would get better and better. And then I kind of plateaued. And then I started doing taking some pressure off the disc, some unweighting. And really, at that point in time, I'd gone down from an 8 to a 6 to a 4, and kind of hovered at a 4. And you can kind of tolerate a 4 if it doesn't go above a 4. You can sort of live with that. But I was still meeting with more people, and eventually, after we did the unweighting and some functional movement, and we'll talk more about that stuff later, but I got better. And I got better to the point where my pain went away, completely away. And I had back pain I didn't golf for 10 years. My back pain was so bad, I just stopped golfing. And my back pain's gone. And I live every day without any back pain at all. And it is a result of this quest. So I went on a journey and I met with a specialist, and I kind of found my way out. I found my way out of back pain. And then what I did is I took the best of everything I had. I got rid of all the stuff that made me worse. So I took the best of everything I had, and I started having the patients, those 20% of my patients that weren't getting better, start going through what I went through. Put together a program of activities that I went through to get me better. And I put them through it, and they started getting better. And we started treating more people, and they started getting better. And we started treating more complicated problems, and they started getting better. And then in 2007, we did the study, and we have a video on the study. And if you want to watch the video, we'll have a link in this, somewhere in here, in this page to click on for that video. And we found that we were able to rehydrate the disc, and then we're involved in another more advanced study now where we're looking at really super complicated sciatica problems, which tends to be the most complicated problem you can have. And these patients are getting better as well. So it's everything we do is the result of things that happen to me. And the reason we do what we do is because I had back pain that was so bad that it wouldn't go away. And I found my way out. And as I found my way out, I'm helping everybody else now find their way out. And we found consistently that by doing this process, you get healing of the disc, you can eliminate the bulging disc, the herniated disc, the degenerated disc. Stenosis and sciatica all get better as a result of what we do. So we do what we do because I suffered and I was the guinea pig, and I found out what worked and what didn't work. And now our program is the pieces of what worked. That is who we are, and that is why we do what we do. If you have any questions, you can call the number on here. I think there's an email you can email, and we'll answer all your questions. Thank you very much. Good day. Amen.